The Brew House was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery, but the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewHouse.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the mighty Genny Brew House here. This is the Rochester Press Box. I'm Bill Pucko, happy to be joined by Carl Falk.
Hi, good to have you.
Good to see you. Pat Duffy.
Yeah.
What are you wearing?
Well, the game-worn Kyle Williams jersey, a guy the Bills could actually really use this week after what happened to Harrison Phillips and his knee. I don't know. I was listening, there were a bunch of folks thinking, well, what would it take to give Kyle Williams a call? He's probably still in shape, hangs around the facility a ton. After the way Harrison Phillips has been playing, that might not be the worst idea on the planet. Oh, it's game-worn. Yeah, authentic. Really super stretchy. Look, ready?
Like you used to be.
Yeah. Well, I'm still super stretchy.
Carl, let's start a little bit of baseball. 41,000 strikeouts this year, breaking the major league record, and it's broken every year since 2005. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up. Every year it's been broken. Home runs at a record pace. We've talked about this before, but I worry about where this is headed.
Well, it's headed towards what it's become. Strikeouts and home runs are all that anyone looks at now. Strikeouts don't matter. It used to be if you struck out, you couldn't play. Now if you strike out, big deal. Just go hit a home run next time. The game is what it is, and it will not change back. I think in this day and age, the scary thing that you're alluding to is viewership. You know what the average demographic for baseball is? Us. That's not good.
Not him?
Not him.
I'm not hanging out.
Not him at all. And that's a problem. They're not going to get younger. Baseball's a boring watch now. If you love home runs, great. You get to see a lot of them. But you have to endure strikeouts.
Okay, to
like
the other
never
side,
before.
the home run derby is at its peak. I don't know if there's ever been more popular.
Do you watch it?
No.
I hate it.
I know, but the old guys hate it.
Do you like it?
I love it. I watched every
There you
second
go.
of it. That whole Vlad Guerrero thing that was happening, the battle back and forth, was amazing this year. I love it. But I do think this might be an overreaction, what you guys are talking about. I understand that the numbers over a significant amount of time have changed, but all it takes is one team, one general manager, one manager to think differently. A team to come in and decide, okay, we're going to play ball the way we used to play. And if that team has some sort of success, things start gradually going back in the other direction. You can look at it at every other sport. Like, for example, right? There was a time in the late 70s, early 80s with the San Diego Chargers and the Miami Dolphins where they started airing it out and everyone decided, okay, we're going to try that same thing too. Then all of a sudden, when teams had success, again, grounding and pounding the ball, early 90s to late 90s, you were winning with running backs, right? I do think it's an ebb and flow. It's just taking longer for baseball at this point.
To his point, the Red Sox dusted off the Yankees in last year's playoffs by playing a more controlled game of baseball, traditional game of baseball, than the Yankees to swing for the fences and found themselves eliminated, which could happen again.
Well, in the playoffs, it comes down to pitching and defense, and that's why that works. And you have to be able to manufacture runs in order to win because you're facing Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole, Zach Greinke. Those guys can dominate, and they'll give up home runs, but they won't give up 3-run homers time after time. It's a different game in the playoffs, and it's a better brand of baseball in the playoffs. Unfortunately, the regular season, it's just all about, it's like watching a softball game at Cobb's Hill.
Yeah.
But you also have to factor in how many teams are losing on purpose right now in Major League Baseball, right? Like, you're going to have a record amount of teams that have lost 100 games this season. If that starts to die down too, I mean, I feel like the strikeout factor goes a whole heck of a lot higher up because you've got guys that will be playing double and AAA ball that are starting on these teams on a nightly basis. When talent starts to even itself out again, you might see those numbers even themselves out.
Yeah, and Garver, the catcher
Mitch
for the
Garver.
Mitch, okay. He verbalized it. He says, a lot of times I think Major League Baseball rationalizes these numbers. He came out for the Twins and owned it. He says, yeah, we're swinging for the fences and that's all that we do because it's more difficult these days to string together 3 or 4 hits because the pitchers are so good. So he's blaming it on the pitchers.
Yeah, but if you're a pitcher, the ball's juice. We know that, right? We all agree that the ball has been juiced this year, and that's why home runs are at a historic rate. Well, if you're a pitcher, you've got to hate this. And if you're the union, what do? Half of your membership hates it. Half of your membership loves it. Who gets more money? If I'm an executive, I'm doing what you're doing, what you talked about too. I'm going back to finding guys who can play the game the right way. You know who does that? It's Tampa Bay. They're that team. Whether or not they can win that way remains to be seen.
Yeah, listen, we're going to see a potential change in baseball, and I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. If the Yankees can play well in the playoffs with their pitching situation, things will start going more towards swinging towards the fences, and it doesn't matter anywhere else. But if they fall on their face with all the talent that they have, with all the expectations because they didn't go get their arms, things are going to start moving the other way.
Well, falling on their face means facing a generational team. This Houston Astros team, I can't remember a team that looks as loaded on paper as those guys.
And they added another piece, and he'll win the American League Rookie of the Year. It's like every year they bring another piece up and they get better and better. I don't see them losing, but I know a lot of people around here think that the Yankees are going to win the whole thing.
Yeah, blinders.
Yeah.
Blinders. We are the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genny Brew House. We are at the Brew House and talking Buffalo Bills next.
The Press Box is brought to you in part by Bay & Goodman Pizza, a local Rochester favorite. Corner of North Winton and Browncroft, Bay & Goodman Pizza.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box from the mighty Genny Brew House. The Buffalo Bills, I think the first thing we have to answer about before we deal with the Patriots coming up this week is did it show poorly that they blew that lead or greatly that they came back and won the game? Which one is heavier to you?
I mean, it's not fun, the first one, but I think the second one weighs heavier because the Buffalo Bills have won games every way you can win them so far this season, right? They came from behind from the beginning against the Jets. That shows something. You handled your business against the Giants, even when things got a little tight and got touchdowns when you needed it, and then you overcame adversity against the Bengals, let a game slip away, grabbed hold of it, came back and won it again. If I was looking at any other team in the league that didn't say the Bills on it, and I saw a team that won 3 games those 3 different ways, that says to me this team is better than the teams that they've played, right? Because everyone's saying, oh, you got 1 win amongst the 3 teams that have. No, I mean, if you can win games in as many ways as possible in the NFL, that's success to me, and it makes me feel pretty confident.
How much do you care that these were 3 substandard teams they beat?
I care a lot, frankly. There's 2 ways to look at it. They've won 3 games in 3 different ways. They won 2 games on the road. The real test is Sunday, obviously, but the question is, has this team matured? The things you're saying, does this show maturity or immaturity? And frankly, I think it's all levels. When you break down those games, the coaching against the Giants, the not putting your foot on their throat when you had them down. Similarly against the Bengals, backing off a little bit, letting teams back in. There are so many questions. The Bills are better than those 3 teams by a lot. Are they good enough now to compete with the upper echelon? And I think this year, the NFL, like no other year, similar to what you said about baseball, there are the haves and the have-nots. And the have-nots are record-breakingly bad. So the Bills have a chance because I do think they're one of the upper echelons in talent. Can they grow and win games because of that talent?
So the acid test now, and this is not just the Patriots. This is a real good New England team.
And as good of an acid test as this is, the following week might be a more true indicator when they go to Tennessee, a team they should beat. Look, New England is New England. They've got arguably the best defense Belichick has ever had. Brady's 42 playing like he's 32. They've got answers at running back. They've got answers at wide receiver even without Antonio Brown. This is one of the better Patriot teams we've seen. They're going to come in Sunday. We're going to find out if the Bills can even play with them.
But how would you know? How would you know? You want to talk about strength of schedule, and that's all I've heard all week. The Bills have played nobody. Okay, the Bills have played 3 teams that have 1 win among the 3 of them. The Giants won last Sunday. You know how many wins the Patriots opponents have? None. 0.
There's one
wins.
big difference, though.
Roethlisberger opening night?
No, the Patriots have dominated.
Okay.
The Bills have won. The Patriots have dominated. That's a huge difference.
The Bills would have dominated that Jets game had it not been through 2 or 3 fluky turnovers.
My aunt would have been my uncle.
Okay, listen, the point of the matter is this, right? You're right. Brady is 42 years old. You have two wide receivers that are coming in Sunday, in Gordon and Edelman, that we don't know what their situation has been. And here's the fact of the week, because I've been looking all week for a reason how this could happen. Against a Sean McDermott Bills defense, Tom Brady has thrown 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Sean McDermott, for whatever reason, knows how to keep Tom Brady from being Tom Brady. Now, you have to stop the run, and we've been able to do that against 2 of the better running backs in the NFL with Le'Veon Bell and Saquon Barkley. I don't know why, but based on what I'm seeing with this team, I have hope for what's going to happen against the Patriots.
I can't say that they stopped Saquon Barkley. Fortunately, Pat Shurmur's a complete idiot, and he stopped giving the ball to Saquon Barkley.
But you got to a point in the game where they had to stop giving the ball to Saquon Barkley, and they had success.
You?
I mean,
did you ever have to stop
They
giving the
were
ball
within
to
a score.
Saquon Barkley?
They were within a score. Were they not? I mean, listen.
I never stopped giving it to Saquon Barkley.
Pick the game.
All right. 7 points right now?
Yeah.
Is that what we're looking at? They cover. And you know what? I'm 3-0 right now, not only straight up, but against the spread on this show so far this season. Not bragging, Carl, but that happened. I've got 1 to burn. And if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen now. That stadium is going to be insane. You don't know what the injury situation is. I'm not confident that Patriots defense is phenomenal, so much as they have played unbelievably inferior opponents. The kicker, for the first time in my life as a Bills fan since Jim Kelly has retired, when Josh Allen has that ball in the 4th quarter, I feel like the Bills are going to win the game. And I think the Bills look in the Death Star, they shoot that missile in, and they blow the thing up. I'm taking the Bills on Sunday.
All right, well, I'm winless, and I just as soon stay that way. I thought this was a 9 to 11 point game, so when the line came in at 7, it was easy for me. I got New England.
I got New England easy, but I do have the Bills covering for what you said in the first part. Sean McDermott schemes well against Tom Brady, and I think he will Sunday. I just think that the Patriots are a much better team all the way through than the Bills at this point, but the stadium will be rocking. If they don't turn it over, honestly, I think they win the game. I really feel that way.
Well, that's a heck of a lot to say about Josh Allen and, young guys playing offense.
Absolutely.
Hey, just quickly, and I know I'm extending the segment a little bit, is there anything like a moral victory for the Bills at this point?
There are no moral victories.
Oh,
no,
I disagree there.
not.
No, I absolutely disagree. You covered this 7 points. Listen, it sucks, but you went and you competed with New England. Look, this team is one of the youngest in the NFL. Its age being brought up by a couple of really, really, really old guys. I think there is that shock factor of Tom Brady standing across from you. And if you compete with this team that has blown teams out, and then you have Tennessee, and then you have Miami, and then you have Philadelphia down the road, yeah, I think there is something to be said for confidence.
We are the Rochester Press Box from the Genny Brew House. Like it or not, is next.
Here's the Press Box trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box trivia answer brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Hey, thanks for joining us, and welcome back to the Genny Brew House. This is the Rochester Press Box. Like it or not, the future of Antonio Brown.
He will play again in this league. These billionaire owners are smarter than anyone else in any room they've ever been in. Last year, Washington signed Reuben Foster about an hour after his second domestic violence arrest. Antonio Brown, last year at this time, the debate was, is he the best receiver in football? Absolutely plays again.
I strongly disagree with that sentiment, and I think Antonio Brown is what turns the tide of these NFL owners, because what he did to the New England Patriots, and then what he did on his way out the door. Not only did you sign a guy that had these accusations, and granted you didn't know when you signed him, fine, but you suited him up and you let him play. Then you decide after an SI story that the Patriots probably had that information in an SI story. Let's be real here. They have FBI investigators working for these NFL franchises. On the way out the door, he takes shots at the owner of the Patriots for stuff that happened in the offseason as well. Like, not only was it enough for him to drag himself through the mud, he dragged the guy that took a chance on him through the mud on the way out.
Can we point out that the Patriots investigative team might be the worst in football? Didn't know this about Antonio Brown. Didn't know they had Dexter playing tight end a couple years ago. It's unbelievable.
Or
the stuff
they had the
don't
smarts
know.
to sort the contract
Don't
out
know.
so that it didn't cost them anything.
Not yet.
Fight smarts to not cost you money on the field, but what did it cost you in how you look? Granted, Belichick says he doesn't care. How about just the fact that Bill Belichick stares down a reporter who asks him a valid question, right? How horrible could you look this week look at all the levels. So many levels, he looked terrible. No?
Well, it's just that the image of the New England Patriots is something that, like, outside of the people in New England, it's dirt anyway. They just
6 rings worth of dirt, though.
Yeah. In the end, really, that's
Yeah.
what matters. We are the Rochester Press Box. We're at the Genny Brew House. And Unfinished Business is next.
And now here's this week's MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
This cinnamon sugar pumpkin latte looks amazing.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, I wish I were this creative.
Oh, I'm not that creative.
Oh, wow. Did you just carve this?
I did, yeah.
Try our new signature latte. It's all things pumpkin at Dunkin'.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genny Brew House. We're at the Brew House. Unfinished Business brought to you by Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'. Pat.
We are in the 100th anniversary of the NFL, as if you haven't seen the 40,000 commercials they've been running every single game. And I'm sure a lot of you that watch this show understand that Rochester, New York was part of the original NFL season. The Rochester Jeffersons, they played here in Rochester, and it was great. Yet, in this 100 years, the city of Rochester and the Buffalo market, Western New York, has done almost nothing with it. There was that scene, the draft, where the mayor came out, the Rochester Jeffersons, they had the logo and all that stuff was cute. But why aren't the Bills doing anything with this? Come back with me. A couple of years ago, when the Browns were out of the NFL, once a year, while the Browns were gone, they did Cleveland Day, and they invited all the Browns fans out to then Rich Stadium to come watch a football game. I find it very hard to believe that a team that has training camp in their yard, right here in Rochester, New York, has done nothing to reach out to Rochester fans to celebrate the fact that we were part of the original NFL, and that the city of Rochester and the county of Monroe has done very little with it as well. It's the biggest sport in America. You have a golden opportunity, and it's been wasted. Does nobody care about us anymore? What about Rochester?
This week's Real Sports on HBO had a profile of Richie Incognito, the former Buffalo Bills offensive guard. The same guy who was cut from the Dolphins after a bullying investigation. He was out of the league then, out of the league last year, and spent his time getting arrested at a gym for throwing things at a guy and then talking about his clearance level with the NSA. Then he went to a funeral home where his father was laid out and tried to get his father's head cut off for medical research. Richie's back in the league now. It was a disturbing profile at a guy who's got a lot of problems. He sounds very intelligent. If you watch it, you'll feel bad for him. But what I find interesting, Richie's in the league. Antonio Brown, we talked about, probably will be back in the league. But there's a guy, Colin Kaepernick, he's not in the league. Explain that to me sometime.
So, I was at the Desperado in Missoula, Montana last Sunday to watch the Buffalo Bills play with my son. The Desperado is a Minnesota Vikings sports bar. There's 30 TVs, but 8 of them are set to the Vikings with a little bit of a local hook. Harmonica Pete did the national anthem at the Vikings game. Just stand up and says, I know that guy. He's from Fairport. He's a bit of a celebrity now. But again, it's a Minnesota Vikings bar. 8 of the TVs are theirs. The Bills are on, but they're tucked on 3 TVs out of the 30 in the place in the corner so that the people that want to see those games aren't getting in anybody else's way. So we got up and we cheered when the Bills scored the winning touchdown, and we got up and cheered when the interception sealed the game against the Cincinnati Bengals, and nobody else in that bar cared. The point is, I think it's kind of refreshing to be in a place where the world doesn't turn on the fortunes of the Buffalo Bills, as unimaginable as that must be, right? Unimaginable
It's not a world I want to live in, Phil. I don't like that world at all. I don't like it.
Ever been to Montana?
I have not been to Montana.
Montana
Great
is
place?
pretty great. Yeah.
Not Bills country, though.
It's funny when you get a place like that. Well, Erie is a classic example of how they split between the 3 teams. Missoula's there. They're half Seahawks. They're half Vikings. And the Denver Broncos have a little bit of field there, but there were more Green Bay Packers in the bar.
But I would think you're close enough to Wyoming and Montana where there would be some Josh Allen supporters out there, right?
Wasn't Drew Bledsoe from there?
Montana?
somewhere.
Well, and the other interesting thing is that the only game Yeah, the only game in there that had less viewership in terms of, so 3 TV sets. I took the survey. 3 TV sets with the Bills game on. There were only 2 TVs that had the Patriots and the Jets game on, and nobody was watching either of them either. Just kind of interesting.
We do live in a Northeast bias here, and certainly Buffalo Bills country, evidenced by that great jersey.
Unfinished Business was brought to you by Duncan. America runs on Duncan. Carl, great to have you back. Thanks. Keep up the
Thanks
good
for
work.
having me. Appreciate it.
Pat?
When it happens, all the credit. When it happens.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. And we're all pulling for it. Not homers here. Thank you for watching. This is the Rochester Press Box from the Genny Brew House, and we'll see you next week.